Welcome back to another episode of Believe in TCU, presented by FanDuel. I'm Zion Trammell, alongside Seth Dowdle. TCU Football, they return to our couches on a Saturday for the first time this year.
Finally.
We're in the middle of September, and this is just now happening, Seth.
We have not sat down on a Saturday to watch TCU play football yet.
We're finally going to get it this week.
And it feels like it's barely happening this week.
It kind of does barely feel like it. It's not they play host to Abilene Christian at 7:00 on ESPN Plus. And look, want to start things off. We don't want to disrespect Abilene Christian. You know, they got nothing wrong with ACU. You know,
Fine people there. I know some people that go there or went there.
Yeah. So, but on the football side of things, it may not be a pretty result this weekend, but we're going to be talking about that. We'll be previewing the matchup, give some players to watch maybe for TCU and our score predictions. But yeah, let's get right into things. TCU obviously coming off a huge win over North Carolina. They had the bye last week, so they had extra time to prepare for Abilene Christian because, you know, they needed it, right? What are they ranked? The 15th?
They're like this 18th or 17th FCS team in the latest FCS poll. So here's no joke about the extra preparation. I do want to see them come out and like beat their butts, like lay a can of butt whooping on them. I think that's important. I'm fairly confident that TCU will win this game, but we have seen that you cannot not take them seriously, or they will, potentially come up and bite you. Ask Texas Tech last year. They went to overtime with Abilene Christian and came out with a 1-point win. Now, I don't think that Abilene Christian is nearly as good as they were last year, mostly because their quarterback, who was awesome last year, transferred to Western Kentucky. But still, like, you don't want to be caught snoozing and end up a laughing stock like Kansas State or like Texas Tech was almost last year. Or like Army, who lost to freaking Tarleton. So
100%.
Like you don't want to do that. And I don't think it will happen. I think TCU is way better. And I think if TCU, like, on a D- effort, could beat Abilene Christian. But, like, still,
you got to play the game. You got to go out there and dominate. And that's the idea for TCU this week. And that was crazy. I remember seeing that, like, whoa, Abilene Christian almost beat Texas Tech. That is crazy. But things have not been the same to start 2025 for the Wildcats. They lost to Tulsa 35-7 on the road. They did bounce back with a win over our favorite, Stephen F. Austin, 28-20.
Big time win over the Lumberjacks.
Yes. And so now they get TCU here. They're obviously there is no line for this game, and that doesn't really surprise me. But
no, like, if it's like, here, let's do math here, right? So if Tulsa beat them by 28, how many points would TCU beat Tulsa by, or be favored over Tulsa by? I'd say probably 4 touchdowns, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the line almost.
Yeah.
It's a big one. And we've seen some big time programs there hasn't been an FCS team other than Tarleton that's come up and beaten, or actually that's a lie. Who was that beat Eastern Michigan? Someone beat Eastern Michigan like last week, I think, an FCS school. But Georgia only won 28-6 against Austin Peay. That was very clearly because they weren't, like, doing anything. But if you can tell, we're grasping at narratives here for the TCU Abilene Christian game. We are grasping for narratives. Here's the biggest thing. Get out of there with a win. Hopefully it's dominant, and stay healthy.
Exactly. That's the big thing. Like, please, no fluke injuries. Like, because, kind of looking ahead, I guess you don't want to do that if you're TCU, but, like, just injury wise for next that matchup with SMU. You want to be at full strength. So definitely don't want to walk away with an injury that could really hurt you in that game.
Yes, and Josh Hoover was in the game for quite a long time against North Carolina. I hope that they, unless they're trying to pad his Heisman stats or whatever, get him out of there, put Ken Seals in, and let the boys cook.
Yeah, let's get them in there. Maybe some
Let's
Adam.
see Adam Schobel. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see him. Let's see it all. So let's get out of there. Get out of there with a win. I think you do want it to be like a really dominant like win, because whether people like it or not, like those kind of dominant wins and like running up the score does play into like the stats that the College Football Playoff Committee does look at the end of the year, and whether like so you do want to do that. There's a reason why Ohio State continued to run up the score on Grambling, because those efficiency metrics look good on the piece of paper that the College Football Playoff Committee is looking at, and I bet you the College Football Playoff Committee did not watch half of your games anyway, so you do want like those numbers matter.
100%. Yeah, I think part of that was keeping Josh Hoover in that game against UNC, getting him another touchdown. TCU could have just sat on the ball, but they put up 48 points.
Yeah, because whenever you look at that final score 3 months down the line, you're not going to be thinking about how that half of that was in garbage time. You're going to be like, wow, what a blowout win.
Yeah, they beat them by 34. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wouldn't expect TCU to like pull their punches too much, but eventually, obviously, they got to get hopefully they can get the starters out of there, and this won't be a close contest. But is there anyone on TCU side that you're looking at like, okay, maybe kind of a quiet game in week 1, you're hoping, would love to see a big game out of them here in week 2 for TCU?
I'd love to see, this is kind of a pseudo answer. I'd love to see the running backs, kind of that 5-man rotation that we ended up seeing. I'd love to see some of the guys down the line get more carries than they did against UNC, if that makes any sense. So that includes Jeremy Payne. I know he got some touches against North Carolina, but I'd love to see him get even more. I'd love to see Nate Palmer continue to get touches with the rock. I liked what I saw from John Dimon in 7 carries. Just kind of those guys are people that I'd like to see. Like once we're done with Kavorian Barnes in the first teamers, put everyone else in. Another person, I mean, I think Eric McAllister is an easy answer, but I don't think you might. I don't know if you want to show your cards too much here. I definitely think this is going to be a very vanilla offense that we see from TCU before we get SMU next week, and as TCU is trying to withhold as much information as possible. So I think you'd like McAllister to do more than 3 for 20, but also at the same time, I'd be fine if he doesn't even play.
He doesn't need to. I mean, obviously he will, but like it's a thing where that's a really good point of just kind of hiding some of that stuff, because again, you're playing SMU, and I have a feeling TCU probably looked into SMU a little bit during the bye week and started to begin a little bit of preparation. They obviously will not admit that, but you gotta believe that they were watching Baylor and SMU go at it and kind of looking to see because SMU, they couldn't pull their punches. They couldn't hide anything against Baylor. They had to go full throttle to lose that game, but it was a very tightly contested game. I think TCU's had that luxury in week 1. They could kind of slow it down a little bit and just hand the ball off and pick up big chunks. And they could do the same thing here against ACU. And that could present some surprises, hopefully, against SMU, which is going to be a huge game. And I like that idea of keeping things pretty basic, because basic is going to beat ACU at the end of the day. That's all you need.
Now, you can't keep it too basic. I mean, you can't hide too much, because you did have to show some against North Carolina. How much they actually ended up having to is a question I think we'll find out at some point, because let me tell you, that North Carolina defense does not look to be too dynamite. And I think once TCU figured that out, they were like, okay, we can just kind of run some basic run fits and whatnot. They were not doing down the end of that game. They were not really doing anything too spectacular. Like I thought of one play. I keep thinking of this one play all like the last 2 weeks. I've been thinking about it. It was a 3rd and 20, and Chase Curtis literally just runs a tight end go route, and literally there's not a North Carolina player within 3 zip codes of them. And so it's like,
crazy.
Like that's not that complex of a play. It was literally this Chase Curtis running in a straight line, but UNC was so inept that it resulted in a first down on 3rd and 20 regardless. So we'll see, obviously. I mean, listen, when it comes to this game again for TCU, we mentioned the key points is just to get out healthy and also to maybe see some guys that you haven't, seen kind of ball out. I mean, this is I do want to do an opportunity for some stat padding.
Josh Hoover.
I was thinking about this when it pertained to Max Duggan's Heisman. He didn't win the Heisman, but he finished 2nd in Heisman voting. People forget Max Duggan finished 2nd in Heisman voting to Caleb Williams. Was that down the line of that season, his stats got progressively worse as we went through the year. There were some like higher points, but I remember there were some games where he threw for like less than 200 yards. Obviously, TC was winning, so no one cared. But he threw for like 470 against Tarleton that year. And threw for 5 touchdowns against Tarleton. And that did a really good job of just kind of put him on the right track. So just laying that out there.
Yeah. I mean, Josh Hoover has got exactly like the kind of thing that could get him in those conversations. And it's obviously so early to be discussing this, but hey, I mean, little stat pad. Again, it's what you mentioned earlier. The voters, they're not going to look back at TCU versus Abilene Christian and think, oh, man, he was probably stat padding that game. They're going to see 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, hopefully, or 300 something. And yeah, and they're going to look at that and say, wow, he had a great game. And obviously it was against a bad team, but he threw for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. And that looks good later down the line.
As we figured out this week, there are voters on very important polls / for awards that seemingly do not watch or care about what they vote on. So
that's true. Well, we could talk about that a little bit here in a moment, but I wanted to talk a little bit about player I'm hoping to see. Jordan Dwyer obviously had a great game, 9 catches, 136 yards. I want to see a little bit from Joseph Manjack.
Wear those gloves, boy. Hey, put some gloves on. Put some gloves on, please.
Please. You talked about McAllister a little bit. Maybe he may not see a ton of action, but Joseph Manjack should. And I think if you can get him on schedule in the flow with the offense, that's just another guy that Josh Hoover can depend on. I think we saw a lot more of DJ Rogers in week 1 than I think any of us anticipated. Using the tight end in the passing game could just bring this TCU offense to a whole nother level with shades of 2022 in there. If they can use the tight end, that's just something I always advocate for. I love the tight end in the offense in the passing game. So, but Joseph Manjack, another guy you could be watching out for TCU, just hoping to see him make some plays, kind of get rolling here, because he had 2 catches for 24 yards against UNC. And we mentioned he was not wearing gloves, and that kind of hurt him a little bit. So hopefully he will here against Abilene Christian.
He better, and I mean, I know he won't. I think Steven Johnson tweeted out, like, someone was like, "Can Joseph Manjack put some gloves on or something?" And he was like, "This is just how it's going to be all year long." And that's fine if that works for him. He just kind of looks he lacks aura. That's my only way to describe him.
It's like a baseball player not wearing batting gloves. It just doesn't. It looked fine on some players, but
Looks
I don't know.
goofy. Just looked
They're
goofy. But if
there.
he gets the job done, then I don't care.
It's
Gets the job done, I don't care.
exactly. He can do whatever he wants. He's a collegiate football player. He can do whatever he pleases. Okay. Before we do, we'll do score predictions at the end. Seth, look, you mentioned a little bit about the AP poll, and there's been a lot of discussion around it. Um,
TCU's
I
not in
mean,
it. That's my biggest
TCU's
complaint.
not in it, and I don't think they'll be in it with a win here. They would need to beat SMU, but what's going on with the AP poll? What are we doing here? It's just a little
Well,
flawed, isn't it?
it all came out. The big tipping point was there was one particular voter who obviously just made a mistake. Didn't moved Florida up 2 spots and then didn't rank UCF. Obviously, just had no idea that game even occurred, which is the problem. Most of these AP voters are beat writers for specific teams. And as we both know, and as I bet a lot of our audience knows, being a beat reporter for a team is like an all Saturday affair. Like you do not have time to sit down and watch 15 or more college football games, or to just get a good sample of what the environment looks like. Because you're say the game's at 2:30, you're getting to the stadium at noon, if not earlier, or just whenever you can. You're down on the field. You're seeing who's in, who's out. Then during the game, you're not watching other games, and then after the game, which is at 5 or 6, you're down, get interviews, writing a story, going to the press conference, and you're out of there by 8. At that point, you're exhausted. You're not going to go home and watch BYU play. And then you have to have your poll in by Sunday morning.
That's the problem is you have to crank that out really fast. And you're right. It is an all day thing. I write for TCU on SI. I don't write for, Forward Star Telegram or anything, but it is a long process of getting to the game. And depending on where you live, it's 45-minute, 30-minute drive possibly. And so that takes things out, especially if it's like you said, a 2:30 game. You're probably leaving as the games start, getting there, and you're focused on your game that you're covering. You can maybe scoreboard watch while you're in the press box watching the game, but not much. Like I said, you're focused on the game. So it is a difficult process for sure to try to keep up with other games. But yeah, I think the timing of it is if they gave them a little bit more time, maybe you could get some better ballots. But
I do think there is also too much of reliance on that preseason AP poll. What we see, and this is also due to the time constraints, is you just move teams up when they win and move teams down when they lose. But if you look at the AP poll right now, I'm going to single out the Longhorns. It's not because I don't like them. I mean, it depends on the day, honestly. What has Texas done this season in 2025 to warrant being ranked number 7?
Not much.
What has Notre Dame done? Notre Dame played one game and they lost. They're above Florida frickin' State, who beat Alabama and then beat East Texas A&M by 75.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
mean, even Illinois, they picked up a big win over Duke.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So
Clemson. What has Clemson done to be 12th? And then finally, USF at 18. If they beat Miami, here's the thing. If they beat Miami, by the way, on the CW at 3:30, the best thing that's ever happened to the CW is Miami USF on at 3:30. If they beat Miami on Saturday afternoon, their resume of Florida State, or not Florida State, Boise State, Florida, and Miami, is that not the best 3 wins in the country for an individual team?
I mean, I can't think of a team that would have better wins. That's an really good resume to start the year. That warrants. I mean, they should probably already be like close to the top 10. That's easily top 10, top 5 discussions if you beat
What if
Miami.
and if that was Alabama who did that, they'd be the number 1 team in the country, no sweat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If they beat Miami in my deep hole, they will be the number 1 team. I'm putting my stake in the ground. If they beat Miami,
I love it. Yeah, why not? I mean, so yeah, it's definitely like preseason like expectations, these preconceived notions of teams that I think are hurting the AP voters, and just brands and names. Like there's no, like some of them think there's no way I can say South Florida is better than,
Ole
I'm just
Miss.
looking, Ole Miss or Clemson, because it's Clemson, because it's Ole Miss. No, you just have to watch the game. Well, again, that's the problem. They can't watch the game.
Yes.
But so it is a flawed system, but I mean, hopefully it corrects itself. That's high
The thing is,
expectation.
it usually does to a certain extent, but at the same time, these early polls create the narratives and also lay the foundation for kind of what the college football playoff committee is going to be thinking when we finally get to those rankings in November.
Yeah.
And so, and also like it creates the narratives around certain matchups and drives TV ratings. Also, I like more people are going to be watching USF Miami because USF has a number 18 next to their name this week.
Yeah. It's all about ratings and just trying to push narratives. For the Big 12, Iowa State is the highest ranked team in the poll at 14. I think you can make a case that Iowa State should be higher.
Yeah.
After picking up a big win over Iowa, and obviously they beat Kansas State in week 0. We also have Utah at 20. They should definitely be higher. They've got 2 dominating wins under their belt. And then Texas Tech sits there at 21. We'll see. Again, TCU, a win here would probably not put them in the poll, but a win over SMU would certainly do that. A pretty quiet week overall for the Big 12 coming up. Colorado taking on Houston. That could be an interesting game if Houston wins that one. 3-0 start for the Cougars. I don't think. I mean, hey, that's pretty sweet. And then Kansas State taking on Arizona. Arizona's 2-0. And yet,
prove it to me, K-State. Prove it to me.
Kansas State is favored on the road, and if the Wildcats have, I just realized they're both the Wildcats. If K-State really wants to prove they're going to have a season that's worth following, they need to absolutely win this game. It's must-win territory for K-State, and could be a good opportunity as well for Arizona to get to 3-0. But yeah, pretty quiet week overall for the Big 12.
Yeah, definitely first 2 weeks were definitely more of the – well, they've kind of already wasted their chances at this point to get those big marquee wins out of conference. Just to spin it back to the AP poll conversation from a TCU perspective, TCU received 58 voting points. That's what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They would be 31st in the poll. Behind USC, Florida, Georgia Tech, BYU, and Arizona State.
All right. Well, okay,
and right above Mississippi State, Louisville, and SMU. I'm so confused about the Baylor SMU dynamic here, to be quite honest with you. Baylor received 7 voting points, SMU 26.
So one team, they played each other, right? Like they played each other, and Baylor won. So like you would think, right? Like that Baylor would be higher than SMU.
It doesn't make much sense.
doesn't.
It doesn't make much sense.
Again, it's just like the preseason thing. Like SMU was there already. You don't want to move them down because they were already there in the poll. Baylor was not.
You can move them down. It's okay. Move them. Kick them out. Kick them out. What have they done? They don't owe you. You do not owe them anything. You do not.
Exactly. They don't owe them anything. But yeah, good. That's all great points there about the AP poll. Hopefully TCU will play good enough to earn the respect of the voters and sneak in there into the top 25. And it would definitely require a win over SMU, a win over Abilene Christian, obviously this week. But let's get into that. You imagine we lose and they're like, let's put them in at 25.
That'd be the most AP poll thing ever.
All right, Seth. Let's get into our score predictions here. TCU versus Abilene Christian. Everyone wants to know. The listeners, they want to know, how much is TCU going to beat Abilene Christian by?
These are always really tough to. I think these score predictions are harder than regular football games. Not that this is not a regular football game, but like you're playing an actual opponent. I'm sorry, that's rude. ACU is an actual opponent. I think ACU will make the FCS playoffs this year because there's like 24 teams that make the FCS playoffs, and they did just beat CNF Austin, so therefore they are good, I think. That being said, I think TCU wins by 35 at least.
35? Okay.
So we'll peg it 42-7. There you go.
42-7. There it is. We're close on that mark. I'm going a little higher on TCU. They're going to give them a 50 burger. 52-6. TCU.
2 field goals for ACU or a missed extra point?
Oh, that's true. We'll go missed extra point. They're going to actually find the end zone, and maybe they'll go up 3-0, and then everyone's going to be like, uh-oh, what's going on? What's going on? And then they get a late field goal in the third quarter, and they're like, oh, yeah, it's now 52-6. I don't know. 6 just hit me right there. So 52-6 and 42-7. Was that yours? Right?
Yeah, I literally have no clue.
These are impossible.
It all boils down to like how long does Sonny keep the dogs fighting?
Exactly.
When does he call the dogs off?
Does he let them do like Florida State and put 70 on them, or does he like, all right, we got respect for them. We're just gonna.
Here's the thing: Sonny is a nice guy.
He is.
He is a nice guy. And I'm sure he knows some of the people on ACU staff. I definitely know he knows Graham Harrell because Sonny Dykes is a pretty large figure when it comes to Texas Tech. His dad coached at Texas Tech. And a lot of the ACU staff kind of has like air raid Texas Tech roots as well. So I'm sure he knows a lot of people on the other sideline and might play a role in whether or not he decides to. He does not know Bill Belichick, so I think that's why he was.
He was like, look, this guy's won everything. We're gonna run up the score. I don't care. Yeah. I love that. I loved it. But
might not happen this week.
That's pretty sad that that was one of the talking points in our preview is TCU going to run up the score on Abilene Christian? Guys, we made it through it. Sorry, go ahead, Seth.
If they lose this game, it's going to be the most like freezing cold takes episode of our show ever, though. I do want to make this clear. We did not mention a single ACU player. I'll mention one right now. Quarterback Stone Earl threw for a couple hundred yards against Stephen F. Austin last week.
Yeah,
Richard Sr. went to Marshall in North Texas as well before ACU.
That was going to be my contribution. Yep, he played at Marshall, played at North Texas. But yes, look, again, this may get deleted if we lose this game. No, we'll keep it up. But it would look horrendous if TCU lost this game. But look, at the end of the day, I didn't want to come into this episode thinking like beating around the bush saying, oh, well, maybe they could. No, like at the end of the day, we just have high expectations for TCU. They should kick their butts, and there's no questions about it. Like that should not be a discussion. TCU should dominate this game, and if they lose this game, they're going to look a lot worse than we do at the end of the day. Like that's going to be a lot more. They're going to take a lot of heat, and
from us, they will take heat from us.
They will 100% take that heat from us. But again, that's hopefully something that we won't have to worry about or discuss when we do our recap here coming up next week. But that'll wrap things up here for our preview episode against ACU. Again, kickoff at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus from the Carter. First home game of the season. Should be a fun one. Make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, subscribe to us on YouTube, or listen wherever you get your podcasts, all at Believe in TCU. You can also follow Seth and I on Twitter and check us out there. So for Seth Dattle, I'm Zion Trammell. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you guys next week. And as always, go Frogs.